Disclose of pecuniary interest for the agenda of this meeting or for minutes of meeting at which a member was not in attendance. Seeing none, I guess we need to start a reminder, of course, to turn your phones and such off. And item number 3, we have Mr. Warmanger here, read the Road and Power from Manitoba, a delegation of 1.
Plus a couple hundred petitions.
So, well, that can be part of the, once your 5-minute presentation is up, we can leave that with the staff, as well as your supporting material, please, Mark. Have at it.
Okay,
The floor is yours.
good evening to everyone. I want to talk about some of the myths regarding the road from the west. And before you, you'll see a page taken from the study that was done 10 years ago, a study which I believe was put together to kill the road. But interestingly enough, under the retail section, I've been hearing all kinds of people saying, well, the road would kill the businesses in town. Now here they talk about the retail section, and they do say there would be some loss to Winnipeg and if the road went through. But they also say that there would be 5 to 10 times the gain to the retail businesses from the cottagers and the people staying in resorts, tourism, and the travel associated with that road. So this whole idea of that the road would kill the businesses in town is a myth. You get 5 to 10 times the benefit from the road. Second benefit, or myth, that I wish to deal with is the cost of the road is prohibitive. I've heard estimates it would cost $1 billion to build that road. Well, I set to work to plan a good location for the road, and I developed a system through Google Earth of examining the grade of the road. Turns out that only 5.75% of the natural grade needs to be adjusted for this road. Now, when I brought this information to Highway, they were so impressed. They said, well, we're going to cost out that road for you and see what it comes to. So the road cost, in actual fact, is not billions, but it's $43 million plus bridges. Now, we're not sure the bridges, some of those out there may be used. Now this, if you compare this with the cost of the estimate 10 years ago, it is only 20% of the guesstimate that was put forward at that time. Now that's a significant decrease, certainly not $1 billion. Now, I also tried to find partners that could lower this cost even further. And so I developed, since hydro was being talked about, the transmission plans for the next 20 years, I developed a plan that would bring Manitoba Hydro right through Red Lake or Bombertown onto Pickle Lake and the Ring of Fire and the northern communities. And this would cost $57.7 million less than the cost of the IESO plan, which is what they call the OPA, Ontario Power Authority. Now, and anyway, that's just in the north of Dryden area, plus you wouldn't have to have the long transmission lines coming all the way from Sudbury. You'd save probably in excess of $2 billion. And you wouldn't have to build a gas generation plant at Pekina for the Ring of Fire processing. Another $1 billion. You could retire or not build, not regenerate some of the atomic energy facilities, several $1 billion more. So people said that we could never get power from Manitoba. On the 3rd of May, that was 3rd of March, that was all turned around. I had sent letters to the ministers federally of energy and global warming. They presented it to the Prime Minister and the First Minister's Conference, and they agreed that it just made sense to you bring that cheap, clean power to Manitoba, help Ontario lower its costs. Now, then I get to a meeting of the IESO West of Thunder Bay Conference, and I find that one of our town employees is trying to kill the road proposal that would be so great for Red Lake. And instead, I don't know what he's said about me, but he's using public funds to carry on the campaign against what I'm trying to do. I'm sure he's doing it with the mayor's blessing, but I never saw
At this time, we should probably shut the 5 minutes down.
I think you're out of order, sir.
What
Unless you
he
can
said
demonstrate some fact, speak to the
my
chair.
time is up, you're saying?
I'm not suggesting.
Okay,
that.
well, I'm
It's
here
not my
to
issue,
ask
Mr.
you
I'm
Chair.
suggesting
to
that.
turn this around with
Mr. Chair, I take
a
serious offense
motion
to that allegation.
supporting the master plan for the Northwest, and I hope that you will do this. I will be around to tell everyone in the community what has been going on, and if this does not go through, make sure everyone knows when the mines close and the businesses.
So the 5 minutes is now well past.
Pardon it?
The 5 minutes is well past now.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. I got a lot to say.
And most of it bullshit.
Now, back that up, Mr. Mayor. You got to call me on that.
You,
back it up.
well, I'm glad
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
What's that?
for you to deliver an allegation that I'm leading a campaign.
That's right.
It's preposterous.
Why are you against this road?
I'm not against this road. I don't know where you're coming from.
Well, you're sure trying to scuttle my efforts.
I'll just remind the chair that 5 minutes is up. Thank you.
Any other member wish to comment or ask questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. So, as I said earlier, if you could just leave your documentation there with yourself, Christie,
Yes.
and we'll slip right into.
Well, I just want to say I hope the mayor is not against this road. That would be great.
I don't think the mayor has ever spoke out against your road. I don't think any of our employees have. You may be perceiving a lack of tremendous support as speaking against, but that's two separate things.
Well, for instance, the town paper was told we shouldn't touch this issue, and it was a dead issue and never to be considered. Who did that?
I have no idea.
Well,
The town paper,
I
sometimes
hope I'm
I think
wrong.
with a grain of salt. So before we come to blows, we'll carry on. Thanks, Larry.
thank you.
I'm sorry. Hall monitoring services? That was a new contract, was it?
So 2 tenders were submitted for the hall monitor services. Staff are recommending acceptance of the lowest tendered per hour rate submitted by Ron Demand for the hall monitor position. Are there any questions regarding this report? Yeah. Meetings
No
in-
questions, comments? Mr. Mayor?
What are the respective amounts, Ken?
Sure. Red Lake Plumbing and Heating, or you want to talk about both bids?
Please.
Sure. Submitted $50 for opening, $50 for closing, and $80 per hour being on site. And Mrs. Mann was $35 for opening, $35 for closing, and $25 per hour being on site.
So difference of 15, 15 and 55 an hour. Councillor Mayor.
I would like to make a comment also that Mrs. Mann has served, I understand, for 5 years as a hall monitor. And I also understand that there was never any complaints about her doing her job. So I don't see why we should have to change it, to change her from that position. So I hope there's a resolution going through to appoint her for that job.
Having said that, moved by Councillor Barron. Seconded by Councillor Goodwillie. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole hereby recommends to Council the acceptance of staff report number building-2016-01 from the Recreation Department regarding hall monitor services. All in favor? Carried. Item B, discharge of firearms bylaw.
All right, so staff are recommending that council adopt the discharge of firearm bylaw based on draft number 2. So the two main differences between draft number 1, which was presented to council in November of 2015, and draft number 2 is basically the restricted discharge area as well as a set fine amount. So in draft 1 in November 2015, staff proposed continuation of the 1 kilometer restricted discharge area from the edge of the property line from areas zoned residential, commercial, institutional, industrial space or open space within the boundaries of the municipality of Red Lake. And this is coming from the current bylaw that's in effect, has been in effect since 2006, as well as a set fine amount of $250. Draft 2 is proposing a prohibited discharge area, which is encompassing approximately about 1 kilometer restricted discharge area. And outside of that prohibited discharge area is a 400-meter buffer for discharging a firearm from any building, structure, or public park. And also the set fine is being, what we're proposing is $500 for the set fine. So those are the two main differences.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Barron?
I would like to go down to 3.1 on this, just for my own understanding, because as we continue on from 2 and 3, I would like to see. Okay, 3.1. That in Schedule A, I would like to see somewhere in there that 1 kilometer buffer be mentioned in there, because when you move down to the A and B sections, you will see where 400 meters is mentioned, and also the next one is exactly what you said. So the only top one does not classify the 1 kilometer buffer. And I would just like to see that stuck in brackets or something for those that may want to read that bylaw and it's just not there and they haven't read the whole thing before. That's sort of capsizing what you just got to
Right. We thought we'd keep it just easier having 2 areas, prohibited discharge area and outside of the discharge area. The prohibited discharge area, what we did is we took the GIS system and our IT manager calculated 1 kilometer from the furthest edge of each property line, so it's automatically calculated to be a kilometer.
So that's what we're still using in 3.1, right?
Yeah, but it's captured in the map automatically. And that's what the public should go by, is the map. Beth, did you want to add anything to that?
I think, and maybe I'm wrong, Carol, but I think Carol's looking at maybe just sort of a friendly amendment with 1 kilometer in brackets on that.
That's right.
Is that
in
it, Councillor?
3.1 is what I'm looking for. It's just put in brackets behind Schedule A, 1 kilometer buffer. Comma. You know, like, that's a friendly reminder, because reading all the rest of it's pretty clear. And if you hadn't read the whole thing, which you should read the whole thing, you would see it before. But it's just, that's sort of like a little summary. When I came to that last night or the other night, I thought that's the only thing that's sort of missing, just stick that little piece up there. Is there a reason why it couldn't be stuck
We
up
can
there?
look, we can take it back to staff and see if we can add it, yeah.
Will that stop motion on it yet again?
I don't think so, but we can certainly look at it this week before it goes back to council at the May 16 council meeting.
Councilor Moda.
I have a few comments. My first comment is, I just want to ensure what we're going through here. So if we refer to the GIS lines that are going around the properties within the municipality, the pink lines that are on the map, that would ensure a kilometer buffer for discharge of a firearm from the closest commercial property, residence, whatever that case may be, correct?
Can we see a map?
Sure.
So if we put one over, okay.
Stick a map up there because they're really nice. Maybe not on the screen.
And don't see any. Pink line there.
But you can see the signage.
So what we were looking at there, looking at doing to make it less confusing, the 1 kilometer is from a built-up area. We didn't refer to that in the bylaw. The initial bylaw that we did, we were referring to zones. We're trying not to do that now.
Yeah.
Because even the properties, like for example, down on 125, yeah, the 105, they're zoned commercial, but there might be no residences on it.
Correct.
Right? So we're staying away from the zoning and the built-up areas. We considered Harry's Corner a built-up area, so that's not included in the site, the town site, but we envelope that in the prohibited discharge area as well. So the 400 meters comes in on those, say, for example, those large commercial properties that may have a building. We don't want them shooting within 400 meters of that building,
So-
but they are allowed to hunt on that property now.
Correct. So my question, and I can't see it on here unless something, but when I was looking at it on site, there was pink lines, it appeared, that would go around certain populated areas.
Correct.
So my question is, are those pink lines representing a kilometer buffer from the closest commercial residential area? Or does that pink line represent where we decided to put a boundary to carry on for a 400-meter discharge of firearm? You know what I'm saying?
The discharge, that is prohibited, period, regardless of the zone, regardless, it is a higher populated area. So staff has decided that is prohibited, and then that, it envelopes that 1 kilometer buffer that the clerk mentioned.
So prior, and please correct me if I'm wrong, sorry to ask so many questions. In our prior bylaw, could we not discharge a firearm from 1 kilometer from the closest residential, commercial type of building?
It was from the property line.
From the property line?
Yes.
So have we extended that to be out further than now? Because the pink line I'm confused with. I'm not sure what that represents, if that's the kilometer buffer from something that's closest within inside of the map. Or are we saying, well, we're going 5 kilometers out and we're going to start at the 400 meter from here? Am I clear or not really?
That solid pink line,
Yeah.
that's the edge of the prohibited discharge firearm. Like you can't, that encompasses the entire prohibited discharge area. After that pink solid line, it's 400 meters.
Correct. So my question is, try to be clear here.
Yep,
From the pink line going into
okay.
the town, as
Yep.
I say, is that pink line represent more than a kilometer from a building or a property line?
It's a kilometer from the furthest edge of the property line, is my understanding.
Okay. I'm thinking then the bylaw might have changed if we've gone a greater distance from the old one as well too, right? Because we were saying before that we could discharge a firearm outside of 1 kilometer before, correct? Or property, pardon.
Yeah, from the edge of the property line.
But we're saying the pink line is relative to 1 kilometer. thereabouts.
Yes, yeah, and that was calculated by our GIS system automatically.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, it's prohibited to discharge a firearm within that area.
Correct.
Once we hit that pink line, if I use that term, sorry,
Yeah.
400 meters.
Right. From any
building.
structure,
Correct.
building.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the only other question I have then, and I'm sorry to ask another one, Mr.
It's
Chair,
okay.
is the pink line, how do we know exactly where that is? How is that measurable? So for example, going out towards Madison, close to Buffalo site, how do I know where that pink line actually begins or starts? Like I don't have like an address 1040 Highway 618 is that zone type of thing. So how do we ensure that there's compliance with it?
We use the actual GIS map. We were originally looking at examples of other maps, but it doesn't encompass the unique situation that we have in Red Lake because of the different sites.
Right.
But we've got the little lakes, there's little landmarks, because I've had to do it for hunters that have come into the office.
Okay.
So if you examine the map, you can zoom in, like if they have some questions, they can come in, we can zoom in and see that is, like Dixie Lake, that was just an example.
Yeah.
But we can see the landmarks that's why we use the GIS map.
Okay.
And the roads, you can capture some of the roads that may not be mentioned on here, may not be labeled on here, but we can zoom in if we need to.
If I'm looking at this map as a hunter,
Yep.
and I'm looking at Suffolk Lake Road there, just
Yep.
for example, because that's what's up there, there's the pink line there. I'm trying to gauge myself, okay, I'm outside of the foot of that small lake there, but if I need clarification, if I can do some sort of bear management or
Correct.
whatever, I need to come in here to confirm that.
I have had hunters come in if they were a little bit, if they had some questions.
Okay.
But generally, we've had a couple residents look at them, and it's doable if you know the lakes and know the roads.
Right.
But everyone else tends to come in anyway. I've dealt with a couple,
Okay,
and it seems to work okay.
okay.
Councilor Mayor.
Okay, you don't know me. I come up from another country and I'm going to go hunting. And I have nobody with me from the Red Lake District going to take me. So my question is, how about signage? Is there any thoughts of putting signage, where this meter is where I can go hunting? Or am I just free because I've got my license and I've got my gun and I can go out and shoot anywhere, just estimating that I think I am 400 meters away? Would signage be of any value to go on that so that I would know, or how?
I think we would have to have a lot of signage to do
Well,
that.
can you have one at the beginning and the end of this district that you're going in? I mean, or does everybody have to come, or do I know that I have to come to the town office and get all my instructions from somebody in here as to where I'm going? Because there is a lot of people come hunting that are not local residents from.
Often people do check with the MNR or with the municipality to find out where they can't discharge a firearm.
Okay, just a question, just a thought.
Mr. Mayor.
There's also, the hunters or users have an obligation as well.
Correct.
However, on roadways, and having lived here long enough, you see a lot of hunters enter territories by roadways, whether it's four-wheeler or whatever, and then they enter into the forest. If we, and I don't know how many roads would be, but I'm picking up on what Councilor Barron said with respect to signage to assist the hunter in compliance. We don't, it's not as though we're going to sit back and try and catch hunters. That's not the idea. This is a safety measure as opposed to a catchment measure. So, somewhat rhetorical, would it make sense to have signage on maybe the major forest entry points.
If I may.
I don't know enough
Yeah.
about, all of forest roads.
I'm thinking it may not be a bad idea to try a couple of them, see how many bullet holes are in the end of the year, and see if it's worthwhile carrying on.
Like I say, I'm just as much concerned with this, with helping the hunter as well.
And just so I understand it clearly, that 400 meter zone, that would be around an area like the storage area outside the town? Okay.
When you look at the map, the GIS system, it's going south on 105 there. It's approximately halfway down to about 1%.
If you look at the map when you're colorblind, there's no lines.
Exactly. Look for solid marks. But it's about halfway down there. And then my understanding is past that 400 meters from any building.
Like the Twin Towers, as they call them, down the highway, that would be 400 meters around that, just before our gravel pit on the side of the highway.
Oh, yes,
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I think it's first of all, I'd like to thank staff for doing all of this work, because this was a lot of work, and I'm glad staff has made a recommendation and being open to changes. The only concern futuristic wise or a concern would be if we expand the municipality in different zones, but then we would have to come back and relook at this, depending on if there's any buildings going up or anything.
The wording is generic, properties, so the property is like
Lines
that.
and links.
So outside of that, though, I'd like to thank staff for all the work they've done on that and the recommendations for being open-minded and being able to change. So thank you. Thank you.
So for clarification purposes, does council want us to look into signage then? Is that the direction?
Mr. Mayor.
My opinion is to look at maybe major entry points, but not purchase signage until there's maybe a little more investigation done to see if it is indeed effective or possibly effective.
Yeah, you're
If
looking
it's all for
at,
naught, that makes no sense.
you're looking at areas maybe like the North Road, Suffolk Lake Road, areas like that, Mr. Mayor, where
Just areas
people are
that
liable to drive.
That I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Like I say, my intent is to ensure the safety of our residents. That's the whole idea here. And if we can help the hunter out by doing so.
Well,
I don't want
after,
to see hunters get pinched for being within 40 meters or something. Video.
after watching that M&R presentation at Thunder Bay, it's definitely a need.
I just think it's worthy of investigation and not purchase yet.
Yeah, and in no way hold the movement of this up.
But we're not deferring this moving forward, though.
No, not the content, just the application. And, we're not the only community in Northern Ontario that probably has this issue. So,
And I'm guessing that we've probably talked to a number of them already. Any other comments, questions? Pats on the back. Alrighty. Moved by Mayor Vinette, seconded by Councillor Moda. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole hereby recommends to Council the acceptance of staff report number bylaw-2016-002 from the Bylaw Department regarding discharge of firearms bylaw. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, folks. Slipping right down to number 7.1. I'm guessing this has to do with the fires of Fort McMurray and a municipal donation to aforementioned community.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mayor.
I asked this to be included in the agenda. Having followed the plight of the folks of Fort Mac, and knowing what we went through in 1980, how the rest of Canada helped us, I'm wondering, and I'm convinced that we ought to make a donation to the Red Cross Fund to the Fort Mac cause. And I think every little bit helps, and if we can make a donation and have the Red Cross leverage it, it may just create a little bigger bang for. And quite frankly, I just took an arbitrary number. I was thinking of something as minimal as $1,000.
Councilor Mayor.
Well, I don't know, I guess I'm a woman, and I guess I thought a lot about going back to 1980 when I was here and watching a very small scale of what Fort McMurray's gone through. And when I watched the pictures of Fort McMurray this past week and all the men that are still there fighting fire and the women were going down with their little children and the faces is engraved in my mind, I was a little bit more generous. So I sat down here thinking about 4,700 people we got, and I know it's taxpayers' dollars, and I know I'm usually the one that thinks about being frugal, but I came down with about $1,500, and this was based on about 33 cents per 4,700 population. And I thought there's probably a lot of people who would like to be able to donate something to this cause, don't know how about doing it, and maybe they're not able to financially afford to do it because we do have rough times in our own area on the economic part. But I thought we, on behalf of the taxpayers of Red Lake, could squeeze out 33 cents a person and come up with $1,500. So I'm putting that on the table, so wherever that shall go.
I tend to agree with Councilor Barron, 33 cents a head.
Per person,
Per person.
4,700 people.
Which is then turned into $1 a head from what I've read so far. The provincial government's matching and the federal government's matching each dollar. I don't know if there's a limit on those. But I spent 30 years of my life there, so I may be a bit biased. But folks I know are still in town fighting fires because they were on the rescue teams and all this from work. A lot of the folks I know are down in Edmonton and elsewhere wondering what the heck's going on back home. A lot of them don't even know yet whether their home still exists. So to me, $1,500, not a big problem. Again, as I say, I may be a bit biased. Councilor Mona.
Just a question, not against that at all. I just wonder if there's a place we can donate outside of the Red Cross?
You can.
You do readings and so much money's lost to administration. And
There
I wasn't
is.
Sure though,
But none of those other ones are being matched by the other two levels of government, Councillor. I did some reading on that too, and my understanding is, and I could be wrong here, Councillor, but it's more the international Red Cross when you donate to that, like efforts in Haiti or someplace like that, where a lot of the money, and I would suspect it's administration, it's transportation, it's everything else, supposedly gets lost. From what I understand, if you donate just to the Red Cross right in Alberta, they in turn then may donate to the Salvation Army in Fort McMurray. But they're kind of a pool for donations that can go elsewhere.
the dollars are matched through Red Cross.
Yes, and for nothing else.
Okay, fair.
So even if 33% is gone in administration, you've still got twice what you gave.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Barron?
I checked that out, and mind you, it's years ago now, but I checked that out in 1980 when people wanted to help our area, and we all went for Red Cross. We all went to register, do the same performance as what I believe Fort McMurray's doing now. Red Cross took it up. We were to Manitoba, most of us, and we were in camps in various places. And I asked that question. If somebody from Southern Ontario, our relatives and stuff, wanted to donate and donate it through the Red Cross, how much would you get as a commission because you're sitting there taking down our names and you're working? And they were told they were all volunteers when it comes to a disaster area by fire or flood. And that's as far as I got told. So I gathered by that they weren't taking commission or any of that sort of stuff or charging for administration. So I had faith that Red Cross did us, they looked after us really well, our small town in 1980. And it looks like they're doing the same if the people registers with them. They're having a hard problem trying to get people to register because 80,000 or 88,000 people coming through, and as of this morning, I think they can come up with about 25,000, which is around the Edmonton district and down to Calgary. But there's a lot of people that went direct flights to other parts of Canada to family, friends, and relatives, and they're trying to get a hold of them as of this morning. because the money is to be spread out over all 88,000 people. So,
Yeah, I think, and I could be wrong, Counselor, but I believe the Red Cross has $1,250 prepaid credit cards for every family that had registered.
and this is,
That came from the province.
Did it?
That's
Well, the
correct.
Red Cross is giving some too, according to what I read, yeah.
and so is insurance companies too. So this is why it's very important that these 88,000 people
Yeah, if
register
you're not
with Red Cross.
registered.
You might lose out on some things that people are earmarking and giving to you.
And
Is
so
it on council budget? I would assume it's
Yes.
on council budget.
that would be my understanding. Would that be correct, Mr. Treasurer, that this money will come out of our council budget?
Yes, and at the moment, there's plenty of room for it.
Early in the year yet, eh?
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Counselor Goodwillie?
Just information's sake, we were at a concert the other night, and they donated $2 a ticket. That must come to 500 or, no, 2 nights.
Almost
Yeah,
$800.
yeah, $800. So, and plus I know the Legion has got a big pot going on the bar, and there's other people in town that are collecting, so it's not,
Grocery stores doing it too.
are they doing it too? I've heard of 3
So sorry, the amount was 1,500 or 1,000?
1,500?
1,500.
I'll make a motion for 1,500.
I'll second it if I have, or can I?
Is there a motion?
I don't have a motion.
Yeah.
We can put it on next council meeting. Or you say it's in the budget?
It is in the budget.
Okay. We can note it in the minutes.
So just,
Because it comes out of
Direct
donations,
staff
right,
to-
Yes.
Brian?
Yeah.
It comes out of donations, and I don't get that over the weekend, and I only had one report to go by, but there was nothing much taken with it.
The run on it hasn't started yet.
Yeah.
so all we have to do at this time, I believe, is just direct staff to make it happen. We don't need
It's
a
a budget
resolution or
item.
It's a
anything.
budget
I
item.
think the minute notation would work.
Yeah. No more questions, comments on that particular item? Alrighty. Moved by Councilor Moda, seconded by Councilor Goodwillie. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole hereby adjourns to meet again at the call of the chair. Or 4 weeks from now, whichever happens first. All in favor? Thank you.